mentor in my life sat across from me one day and he said, Josh, organizations rise and fall on leadership. I didn't know at the moment what he meant by that until several months later when I went on a all guys backpacking trip, and I'd never been on one before. Today, I want to give you 3 to 4 lessons, if I have time, of what I learned about leadership on this trip. Number 1, clear communication. John Maxwell says that we're always communicating, but we're not always connecting. The guy leading this trip sent out a group text and he said, this is a really easy hike. He never said to pack light, what the rating was of the hike, nothing. He just said, it's easy, bring your gear, meet at this location on this day, and we'll all head up together, 8 of us. We show up, everybody's getting out of the vehicles, and there are guys pulling these massive backpacks out that had what looked like TVs. One guy brought a laptop, several chairs, his whole kitchen for cooking up at the top of this hike. We were heading to a glacier called Lake of the Angels in Washington State. We brought a lot of stuff. The guy leading it looked at us and said, what are you guys doing? We're only going for one night and you're bringing your entire living room and kitchen with you. And we said, well, we thought we were supposed to bring our gear, so we packed our gear. And he had this concerned look on his face that we were not going to make it to the top of this hike. So we put our stuff on. One guy had never been hiking in his life. I've been once, but only for day trips. We pull our gear on and we start hiking up this mountain. 5 minutes into the hike, we're taking a break, grabbing water, pulling our stuff off, taking coats, putting it back in our backpack. He looked at me and said, this is going to take forever. This should be a 3-hour hike. I don't know how long it's going to take us to get up there. We continue heading up and heading up. People are passing us. People that had passed us came back down before we were halfway up the mountain. We get to this one spot that I didn't like because I don't like hikes or heights, I should say. I like hiking, but heights scare me. And we get to this spot where we had to put a rope up on this huge boulder. There's a cliff on the other side. And I said, you didn't say nothing about a cliff. You said this was easy. He said, well, it is easy for me. We clipped our gear onto this rope and guys are helping each other get to the top of this rock. And I finally get up there. And he looks at me and this other guy named Daryl, and he said, hey, Josh and Daryl, let's go ahead of the group because they're falling behind. Let's find the path, make sure we're going the right way. So we left them behind. And point number 2 is make sure you know where you are going. We start down this path and we see this massive hill and we head up that hill. He said, I think that's where it is. Let's go that direction. So me, Daryl, and this guy named David, who's the leader, we head up this hill, massive hill. And we get to the top, set our stuff down and say, where's the lake? There's no lake up at the top of this hill. And we look out and the path is way down there going around a corner and people are heading up that pathway. And we looked at each other and said, we went the wrong way. How do you lead people if you don't know where you're going? Make sure you know where you're going. The third point is when we are leading others, and this was a valuable lesson I learned, don't leave people behind. They asked me to continue going up to find the lake when we finally got down from the wrong path we were on. They said, Josh, why don't you go ahead, see if you can find it. So I'm following the path, and I did find it. And I was so tired. It was 8 hours later that we finally got there. I was so tired, drenched in sweat. It's a hot day in Washington State. And I run to the glacier, throw my gear off, and dip my head in the water and just cooling down. And when I lifted my head up, I see this tent across from me. And these two people look over at me and they were making out in the tent and they just zipped up the window. I stood there asking myself, how did we get here right now? What is happening on this hike? Everybody shows up. They start putting the tents together. And I look around and I said, David, where's Eric? Eric's the guy that's never been on a hike in his life. Where's Eric? And he looks at me and goes, I don't know. Eric's gone. So I left our group and I went and hunting for Eric. And I go out on this other pathway and see him heading back to me. He said, I got lost. I said, yeah, we lost you. Don't leave people behind when you're leading them. And fourth, the next day after we had camped up at this lake, we were heading back down. We got to the boulder that I was scared of. I didn't want to go down. I don't know if you are afraid of heights, anybody else in here. I am very scared of heights. And we get to this cliff where we had to put the rope down and bring our stuff to the bottom. And this other guy in our group, he said, hey, Josh, I know that you're feeling scared. Why don't I carry your bag for you? I hope you get down. That was a valuable lesson for me in leadership because sometimes we do need to help carry other people's burdens that we're leading. Being a servant leader. So I come back to that first quote I gave you at the beginning. Organizations rise and fall on leadership.